Nvidia stock is so close to hitting $150. As I am recording today's episode, the stock was up over 2%. And in the past 5 days, it's been a pretty great week for Nvidia stock as the stock is up roughly 10%. On today's episode, I want to take a closer look at why this weekend might be even better for Nvidia. And I also want to take a closer look at some recent news impacting the overall stock. So let's take a closer look in today's episode. But before we go any further, if you want to get the best NVIDIA news anywhere out there on YouTube for free, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button as this is the best channel for any semiconductor update. Also check out the pinned comment for special offer at fool.com and my semiconductor earnings ebook with the coupon code down below. So now let's get started.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so first we can see in the past 5 days, the stock is up roughly 10.5%. And I do believe the US elections and obviously the implementation and additions of Nvidia entering the Dow Jones Index are two bullish trends for Nvidia. All right, so first let's start off with the election. I think the market right now is very perceiving this current elected administration as an administration that's going to help with things like regulations. And we've also seen that this current administration has the backing of Elon Musk, and maybe Elon Musk might push more into things like the technological side here and the advancement of technology with artificial intelligence. And obviously Elon Musk has both companies like XAI, which deals really strongly in the AI market. Then they have Tesla, which obviously deals with strong in the autonomous vehicle. So I believe the market is kind of reacting and hoping that, hey, with this person so close to the administration, it can help accelerate the AI space here in the United States, which obviously bodes well for companies like Nvidia. Then you also just have kind of the overall bullish trends right now in the market right now after the elections. We can see a lot of tech stocks going up. So I think that's one of the things driving the stock price up, not the only thing. Then we also have Nvidia. We mentioned it last week that Nvidia is going to join the Dow Jones Industrial Average, replacing rival chip maker Intel. So the date that this switch is expected to take place is on November 8th. And that is tomorrow on Friday or today, whenever you're watching this video. And a few things to remember here. So we talked about this last week when we kind of heard the update. And obviously, this is going to be great news for the short term of Nvidia's stock price, as there's two things. Usually you have investors that believe after the inclusion happens, you're going to see a nice rally up in stock price. So you're having a nice amount of buying pressure before the inclusion. Then after getting added to the index, you're going to have kind of that increased volume pressure as well as the index buys, and then any ETF that follows that index also buys Nvidia shares. So you're going to see this strong volume and strong kind of buying pressure on Nvidia within the next few days. And I believe investors are pretty excited about that. I kind of mentioned that for me, this is great news for the short term, not necessarily that great news for the long term. I remember in my comments of my previous video, a lot of people were saying, hey, Jose, in the long term, this is going to increase the amount of shares being held by by kind of the hedge funds and all of this big money. So in theory, it should make the stock less volatile. I want to say big insiders and the big players already own a big portion of Nvidia. So I don't see much changing out of there, right? So I still stand by my overall remarks that this inclusion is going to be really great for the short term of Nvidia stock price. But remember, this is a $3.6 trillion company. It's not a company with a few $billion of market cap. So it's already kind of known that the big hedge fund, that the big money already has huge positions. So in the long term, I don't think there's going to be anything that I, as an Nvidia long-term investor, see can benefit from, in my opinion. Obviously, long-term bullish in Nvidia, and this is my number one position. The other thing I do want to mention is the inclusion happens tomorrow, but the additions don't happen until after the market closes, if I remember correctly. So tomorrow we might continue to see kind of that bullish trend of people trying to get ahead of this heavy bullish volume incoming. I mean, I don't think I have much to say to short-term investors as I don't really deal in that space. In the long term, I'm still very, very bullish in the stock. But in the short term, we might see a lot of volatility. I mean, volatility goes both ways, right? You can expand one way, very bullish, as we've seen the stock is up roughly 10.5%. It wouldn't be unreasonable to assume that maybe there might be a few days in the next few weeks where we might see some heavy red days as well. But obviously, everybody hates it if I mention that, but volatility is just part of the game. Long term, I'm still very, very bullish on Nvidia. But personally, me, I'm not buying anything heavy at these levels. Now, the other updates that I want to take a closer look at with Nvidia are press release that the company shared and some other news that we're seeing floating around. So on November 7th, Nvidia names Miss Ellen to board of directors. And this board of directors is now expanding to 13 members. And Miss Ellen was the former director of NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston and the first Latina astronaut in space. So what I believe could be very beneficial with this is with this board of director, especially with someone so close to the government and something like space travel and this kind of the space industry, this can bode well for maybe future connections of Nvidia into the government space, but also into interesting and innovating markets like the space industry. So this is something that I'm going to have to keep closer eye on in the upcoming quarters. I don't think this is something that we're going to hear about right now, but maybe in the future quarters, maybe in the future years, we might start seeing more of the AI market, maybe impacting the space market, maybe impacting a little bit more the government market, and hopefully this addition of board of directors can help out in that space. So I think this is good news and it's good for the long term of the stock. The other thing we have is on Japan on the upcoming week, November 12th and November 13th, Nvidia will be having an AI summit in Japan. So Nvidia has been doing kind of these AI summits all over the world, kind of showcasing sovereign AI, which is as individual countries are building in their own AI infrastructure. Last month, in October, we heard about India's AI summit. Now we can see Japan is going to be the one hosting the next one here on November. I think overall, this is just bullish for the stock as it showcases the huge demand of AI independently by different nations. And we both know, and we all know that Japan has been one of the biggest investors of AI right now. There's a lot of great AI startups in Japan already. And obviously last month with India, we also know India is another big player in this space. So again, this is more, in my opinion, long-term greatness for Nvidia. It's just more evidence that we can add to that Nvidia folder that says, hey, look, Nvidia has this future growth potential as individual nations continue to expand their AI solutions. So like I mentioned, the event is going to happen on November 12th and November 13th. A lot of the things will be live streamed and there are going to be a few keynotes. So definitely check it out if you want to learn more about the semiconductor AI space, especially dealing with Nvidia. Now, the next two topics that we're seeing from Nvidia are really focusing in the robotics market. And we keep hearing from Nvidia and other robotics companies that it seems like the ChatGPT moment, which was that big aha moment for AI, is coming to the robotics market really, really soon. So Nvidia, one thing that they do really well is kind of create libraries to help accelerate the progress here. And this is what's making them be a top player in the software space. And when you're thinking of things like software acceleration, AI workloads accelerations, Nvidia is the key player because they've created various libraries for various workloads. Now they're working on more workloads and more libraries for the robotics market. They introduced 6 new group workflows to help provide humanoid developers with blueprints to realize the most challenging humanoid robots capabilities. So Nvidia really is taking this robotics market pretty serious. So I want to say outside of the AI data center space, maybe outside of autonomous vehicle, it really seems like the robotics humanoid market is going to be one that maybe in the next 5 to 10 years is going to be a big player, and Nvidia is trying to get in front of it, right? Staying with this AI robotics market, there is a partnership that they had with Hugging Face to accelerate open source AI robotics research and development. So again, we can continue to see how Nvidia is really pushing more and more resources into that robotic space. And it tells me, hey, Jose, maybe we have to really start taking a closer look at some robotics company. If you know any, let me know on the comments below. All right, so the final article I have here is there are reports Nvidia is moving orders away from Supermicro over dodgy financials. And this is pretty interesting that these news keep coming out. We just heard from Supermicro's earnings that their partnership with Nvidia is still strong, and they've heard from Nvidia that Nvidia isn't really moving any orders or any inventory elsewhere. So I'm not sure why we keep hearing that. Maybe Supermicro might be telling us more lies, and if their financials are lies, then maybe it's not impossible that the thoughts that they gave us during the earnings calls are lies as well. But at the end of the day, I don't believe this is anything negative for Nvidia stock, as there's plenty of AI server makers out there like Dell, HPE, Foxconn, and the list goes on and on. So nothing I personally would be worried about. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, and hope everybody has a great weekend.